obviously we'll talk about Twin Peaks, we thought we might. Then we'll go on to Fireball with me, of course. We may even touch on 2016. And then at some point I will throw the questions open to the audience and you'll get to ask them anything you like. You don't have to answer anything. Personal this is going to get. Okay, so let's get this this thing going. Dana, my first question is for you. What's the world coming to when you kill a guy for baby laxative? That was shit joke. Moving on. No, seriously.
Can you hear us? Oh, yeah.
Is this thing on? Okay, no, seriously, my first question is for Dana. If you could just tell us a little bit about how you got the part, if you auditioned, if you knew anything about Lynch beforehand, how you came into the world of Twin Peaks.
Okay. Joanna Ray, the casting director, I'm sure you've heard her name before bandied about because she's pretty much responsible for bringing everybody to today's attention, was casting a bunch of shows at that time, and she cast a show called Amazing Stories for Spielberg. It was like a show that he was doing, and I just recorded a bunch of times and never got it. And my picture happened to be in the stack of pictures that David went through, and he just picked my picture, and I came in for a meeting, and I remember Eric Ray, who played Leo, was Joanna's son, and he was running the session, and the casting session, and so we talked, because I knew him, and so we talked and we were laughing about the script. I read, Northwest Passage is what it was called at the time. And I'd read it, and we were laughing about the lady with the patch. We were like, oh my god, the lady with the patch, about the drape runners. It's so funny. We were laughing about it. And then I went into the meeting, and it was just David and Mark and me. And we just sat around and we talked about all sorts of stuff, like mostly nothing to do with Twin Peaks, just about like, I was in a theater company, we were talking about that for a while, and they talked about stuff, and then David said, well, Bobby doesn't smile a lot, so I was like, oh no, I won't ever smile. And he also told me that he said I should work out. And I was skinny, I was super skinny, and I never did. But, and then I never auditioned. I had a work session with another young actress, I don't remember who it was, and we did the scene from the pilot with me and Shelley in the car, the happy hour France scene. And I remember asking David if I should pretend to be driving. I was like, should I actually fake it? He was like, yeah, fake it. So I was like, faking it. And we did the scene, and then I ended up going in for the network test. And when they brought everyone in, it was only one person for the part. Which is usually like 4 or 5, and you have these other guys there, and it's like, oh, I'm really uptight. But this was just one person for every part that happened to be in this particular session. It was Ray Wise was there, and Richard Beamer, and Mark Flynn, and I don't know, a couple other people. And we were all there for our own parts. None of them were overlapping, so it was like we were all friends, and it was great. And that was it. And then the next thing I knew, I got it. And David wasn't even there for the network test, which is unheard of. It's usually, everyone has to see the test, but David already signed off on it anyway, so. Mark gave me the thumbs up after my reading for the network. It's like, and I was like, okay. That was it.
So I suppose I should ask the same question of Sheryl. How did you get the part? How did you find out that you got the part? How did you feel about it?
Well, I was living in Seattle at the time, doing theater and studying theater, and I had an agent that was just sort of for commercial auditions or any kind of money-making gig that an actor can get when, they're doing theater. And she called me one day and said, this director, David Lynch, and I knew who he was, and she said, he's in town casting for a pilot for TV. Nobody knows anything about it, but he saw your photograph and he thinks that you're the stud girl. Can you come in and meet? And I didn't know anything about that world of television and film or casting like this or anything, and I was so nervous, I literally sat on my hands like this because my hands were shaking so bad, which they still do in auditions, by the way, when I'm holding the paper. So I sat on my hands, and he just asked me questions like, how I would feel about being painted blue-gray and wrapped in plastic and dipped in freezing cold water. I was like, I'm fine, I'm from Colorado, I grew up swimming in mountain streams, it's no problem. And he said something at the end like, okay, well, let's do this. It was something that seemed very positive, but I thought, I don't, did he just, did I just get a job? I don't even understand. And I walked. It's still like that, exactly. It's so true. It's still like that. And then as I walked out, the casting director said something like, don't say anything, don't say anything. And I'm like, about what? I'm so confused. But apparently I had been this character, and then I was hired for 4 days as a corpse and did my dead work. And then, and a couple of flashbacks. And then months and months later, I stayed in Seattle because that's where I was living at the time, and they all went back to LA, and then months and months later, David called and said, the show got, we're doing the rest of the show, would you move to LA? And I was like, yeah, but I'm dead. He said, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And it is, thank God.
And when you were actually shooting the pilot, I mean, obviously you read the script and it was obviously very, very different, but did you have any clue that it was going to be, I mean, obviously you couldn't know it was going to be as big, but did you know it was going to be something special or different, or?
No way. No way. I mean, I only knew David from Elephant Man. It was the only movie I knew. I didn't know Blue Velvet, I didn't know Dune. And Eraserhead, I think, had been on cable, but I just didn't, I was young and stupid and I didn't get it, but now I do. I had no idea. Nothing. Until we had the screening of the pilot at the DGA in Hollywood, and it was the first time I'd ever been to a screening of anything I'd ever done that was well received. And like people coming up afterwards and being like, wow, that was really cool or whatever, and I'd never had seen it before, someone doing that. So it was like, wow. I didn't think it was going to be anything even after that, but it was like, people liked it at least, It was like something that I did that people liked for the first time. It was nice, so. But no idea. No idea. I have no clue. I don't think anyone can ever know, It's just what catches the zeitgeist or whatever, what catches that sort of vibe, gets out there in the human element. You never know.
Well, it's done very well. I don't know if you're aware, but it's done fairly well. One thing that's consistent with everyone who's been in Twin is they love to talk about how the first time they met David. And, when he said how he appeared to them, how he struck them, because he's a truly unusual, incredible person. So I wonder if you could both maybe talk about the first time you met him. I mean, I imagine he's very likable immediately. That is what comes across to me anyway, but if you could just...
Well, the first time I met him was at that audition in Seattle, and I had seen his work, and so I knew that he was very capable artistically of exploring the dark side, or the deep subconscious. So I just remember thinking, he just feels like family. He's so warm and funny and welcoming, and immediately put me at ease and was kind, and still to this day, all these years later, it was one of the most welcoming rooms that I've ever walked into as an actress. He just had a way, just so in his heart, and working with him, it's like nothing else, because you get to constantly go to places that you didn't know you had within you. And he creates this world for you as a person and also as an artist where you really can soar. You can try things, you can go as far to the edge, you can jump off the edge, you can fall down the edge, you can land splattered on the ground, and you're gonna be okay. And it's just stretching and growing and being surprised and being in the moment and the spontaneity, and he carries that with him as a person. And I love his sense of humor. I really, on those long days, I really appreciated his humor.
Yeah, he's like a funny guy, and laughs at your stuff. You know, he listens and laughs. You know, he interacts. He's not just like into his own thing at all. One of my most vivid memories of working with him was like when we were sitting around waiting for him to set up lights or whatever, and you have 45 minutes where it was just sitting around. Some people go to their trailers or whatever, but it would be fun to just hang out on the set while they're setting stuff and go over on the side or whatever and let them work. And he would take a can and he'd put a can out 20 feet or wherever, and they'd say, pick up 6 rocks. And so you have a bunch of people looking around the rocks and picking up rocks, and then he had a contest who can hit the can. I mean, it was like literally that. I don't know if that's where the rock throwing contest came from. I don't know which came first, but we were definitely doing that on the set a lot. Like just hanging out. It was fun. It was really fun. First time I met him was in that audition, and it was him and Mark, and I thought it was just like meeting an old friend, really, honestly. He was just such a warm guy, and didn't like judge or any weird things, didn't feel insecure or whatever. He was just, lucky to ever get in that room, honestly. To meet someone like that.
Now, because we have Sheryl here, we have to talk about the wrapped and plastic scene. Now, I'm told that you yourself wrapped you and painted you and placed you.
Yeah, well, he's such an artist. He's very specific. Like, I remember so clearly him coming over, and I kind of went into another zone, which was the way I had to do it because I knew I was taped and I couldn't move, and it was cold, and so I knew just I had to kind of go into this almost like a meditative state. And I remember him coming and like placing those sand grains exactly how he wanted them and making the folds of the plastic. And he was very specific about the color of the makeup, that it had to be a certain, he has that artistic eye, so that is with him all the time.
I also always struck me that it is a very artistic way because it kind of goes off, it tapers to one side. It's very kind of abstract.
It's not easy, when they pull that down off of her face, her eyes don't flutter. I mean, it's hard to, if you've ever tried to do it on film, you get, like, it's all good until they say roll it, and then all of a sudden your eyes start going back and forth, back and forth. You try not to flutter. It's not easy. It's not easy. She's just like dead. Amazing. I was stoked for that.
And conversely, in Dana, the scene that always sticks with me, I remember when I first saw it, it was the first time that I thought, what am I watching? Because it's maybe going to go off in another direction, is the scene when they bring James into the jail, and you're in there with Mike, and you just start barking. You can tell me a little bit about where that came from. So, I remember watching it, I was quite young, I was thinking, werewolves, what? Where is it? So that point, I didn't know.
It wasn't something bad. What it was born from like this thing that they used to do at my high school. I wasn't really particularly into athletics in high school. I played like on a tennis team, but like if the basketball games and football games, guys would go, ooh, 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 ooh. It was like a thing, and everyone would do it. It would be like this loud thing. It wasn't exactly what I did, but David wanted something, and he took me out. It was in this weird place we were shooting in Snohomish, and he took me out onto this balcony. It was actually a roof, like a rooftop where we were. So we were like on the second floor. And he took me out there and he wanted me to practice some things when no one else was around. So I was doing stuff. It was snow everywhere. And we were practicing on barking, doing all sorts of different things. And and then some guy that like was running the building came out and said, "Hey, you guys can't be on that roof. You're gonna crack the tar so getting rain in it or whatever." And so David was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And so we came in. And it eventually came what it was, and he wanted me to hold that last yell thing. And then, and I remember right after the scene, Lara from Boyle was outside, and she was outside, and I came out of the jail set or whatever, and she was like, "What the heck is that? What was that?" She couldn't get it. She was just like, "What the hell?" And yeah, that's where it came out of. My mom was very happy because my teeth looked very straight. I don't have any cavities, so I have good teeth. Terrible eyesight.
And when you actually started after the part,
how much of your kind of character's backstory and where you were going to go were you informed of, or were you totally in the dark?
Well, which character? Yeah, I just kind of remember not really having a lot of intellectual information, just really staying in the moment and being able to, you know, having to kind of just let everything reveal itself in the moment as it does in life.
Pretty much, you know, I mean, I learned a lot when I read the diary, actually. I mean, they said Bobby killed the guy in the pilot. I think you might have said, or I think Mark Fungoyle, I think Ron said it, it's James, she's like, whatever. But it never really, like, I never knew who I killed or how or anything. The diary, I learned a little bit more about myself, but, you know, most of the time we were just kind of trusting that the writers knew what was up, and, you know, the scripts were dynamite. You know, there were just great scripts, so we just did, you know, we just followed that sort of map. And it wasn't, you know, we were sitting there going, "How to Bobby? You know, is he like blues better or what?" It wasn't like that for me. You know, I was just staying with the actual story that I knew and taking it from there.
I would say one thing that's very good about Bobby's character is that, unlike a lot of the other characters, he had a real arc. He really changed.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you first meet him, he's this one thing, and he grew up.
Yeah.
And that must have been
Grew me up a little. Yeah, it was strange. It was strange. I was really surprised when they started, because like for a second there, they started to maybe have Bobby and Audrey Horne have a thing, and then they brought in the character Justice Wheeler, and that kind of went the other way, and it was just such a bizarre thing. I was surprised that they actually were kind of straightening me out a little bit. I was surprised, but it was fun. You know, it was fun to try that stuff too. It's always kind of nasty. I like that part of it. I don't want to get too soft.
And when it really exploded, and it really did explode, how did that, what were the immediate effects on you? Did it completely screw your head, or did you enjoy it? Were you able to enjoy it?
It wasn't like you would imagine it, I don't think. It wasn't like the Beatles were down the street or anything. There was some crazy stuff. But, I don't know, I never really felt like it was not like crazy, like, oh my God, it's so crazy. I never really felt it like that. You probably felt it more than I did, because you were like the iconic face, and everything, your face was everywhere on every poster. I don't know.
Well, I remember at first discovering that I was not anonymous. And I remember that was a very strange feeling. I had no reference. My parents aren't in acting or anything. And so I didn't grow up around it. And because Twin Peaks was my first television film experience, I had no reference in my life to what happens, or how do you navigate through this, or how do you adjust to this. And I remember the first few times of realizing that that was happening, and how sort of strange and out of sorts. I didn't know how to deal with it. And then it seemed, then I remember, and you guys have probably heard me say this in some interview somewhere, but people see me and they think they're seeing a ghost. So I would get, you know, this all the time. It wasn't necessarily, oh, it was, you know, this constant sort of, I was forgetting that they're seeing me as someone who's already died. So, and then there was that part. And then there was just the difference in life in terms of, you know, all of these other things that go with a television show, like press, and them sort of having your schedule, and other, like everything, all of that stuff that I didn't, it was almost like jumping on a roller coaster that I didn't know where it was going to go. I just kind of had to fasten my seatbelt and breathe through it. I wish now that I could go back to that time and slow it down and really, like, you know, be able to be more present with it. Because also that time in your life, I mean, we were trying to figure it out. We were like 22 years old. That's a time in your life that kind of goes fast, at a faster pace than other decades anyway. And to kind of have that happening at the same time during that part of my youth, you know, now as a 47-year-old, I'm like, I wish I could just slow it down and remember more of the moments where I was so just trying to keep up or feeling shy about it or not knowing how to deal with it, you know, but you just learn by going through it. Yeah.
Okay, so eventually the show sadly was axed, and then Firewall for Me comes along. How did you find out about that, and when you kind of when you found out what it was going to be, i.e., you know, before, were you glad about that? Did you get to flesh things out, or?
Well, I was super stoked, but they weren't going to do it. They were going to do it, and they weren't going to do it, and they were going to do it. So I thought it was not going to happen. Really, I thought it was kind of a different thing. You and Ray and Kyle, you know, they were going through it more than I was. I just kind of, as soon as it was on, I was in. So I was very happy. I was like happy to be back there. Happy we shot it in the same exact. We stayed in the same hotel we stayed at when we shot the pilot. And the pilot, that hotel had a fire and burned down, not all of it, but it had a huge fire. And so they repaired it since the year that we were doing the show in LA, and then we came back to the movie, and it's the same hotel. It's 2-floor, 3-floor, little red line in Bellevue, Washington. And it was like so great to be back there. And so back, you know, it was great for me. I had a great time there. But she had the big load. I just had to show up for a couple scenes. She's blue eyes, and screaming, crying, and all that stuff. Not easy, you know. It's not easy.
So can we talk about how you expanded Laura? Because, like you said, initially you were hired as a dead girl.
Yeah.
And of course, the actual script and the performance in that film is so fleshed out, it's so strong and effective. How did you actually manage to
David,
flesh
I mean, really, it was a real gift, just creatively, because, you know, to carry that energy of Laura, and in the pilot, and to have that life force be a part of your life for such a short time, I felt like it was never fulfilled. It was cut too short. So when he came to me and started talking about the possibility of doing this film that was going to happen before she died, in a way it was such a relief, because it was a feeling of, oh, finally she gets to have a voice. Finally she gets to express what she needed to express. Finally she gets to tell the story that she needed to tell. And David and I, we would just have these, he works in such a wonderful way, because you're just talking with him. Like, we would just have these creative conversations about Laura and posing questions and letting introspections happen and letting dreams happen and just kind of letting her start to regain her life force. And I feel like, you know, even filming, that's what he would do. I had this thing of, can we walk and talk, David? And he would just take me and take my hand and say, okay, you're just coming from Donna's house. It's, you know, and he would talk to me as Laura, and that was it. So I mean, I give that to him, really, fleshing her out like that. And everybody else that was my partner in crime.
Well, just the scene in the movie that we had together, like we had a couple, but the main one was the one in the woods where we killed
I love that
guy.
scene.
And that scene, I mean, it was like a serious, like a 10, 15-minute scene. It was a long scene, and it was very choreographed. I mean, we were in the woods, it was freezing cold, it was like 3 in the morning. And we'd walk off at the start of that scene, way deep into the woods, and wait for them to say action. And then we'd walk down, and couldn't see us for like, you know, a couple minutes before we got to the set. And that was another time when David, like, at 3 in the morning, whipped on the rubber gloves and wanted to, like, make the brains. When I lift up the guy's head, you see the brains. That was all David. He put the brains on, got in there, into it. And I thought it was awesome. And it was one of my favorite scenes ever to do, because it was just so blunt. I mean, it was just so, we were fucking up, seeing that happen, because it was annoying, and it was powerful, and it was real, and it was great. I had so much fun with that scene.
I was actually going to ask you about that scene. Was there any improvisation in it? It feels so...
A lot of it.
So natural.
It was one of those things where I said it up a lot. I said it a lot. It was in the improv, and I'm like, like fucking variable. Yeah, all that was just improv out, it was just kind of in the moment stuff, yeah, a little bit. It was structured, but there was definitely like moments where we were feeling it,
I just learned you never ask Laura Palmer to have you very recording.
She's just no good.
Not good at it.
She's messing around. I'm like, come on. It was a fun night. I remember that night really, really vividly now.
And how did you feel when you saw the finished film? Because there were,
I dug it, but I like non-linear shit. But it was a bit of a the reception at Cannes was a bit was disheartening, I think, because he's such a favorite in France and Cannes. I mean, he's just he's like beloved, and I think it was sad for everybody that it just wasn't received as well as we thought. I dug it, I like it.
Yeah, and for me, I don't tend to watch my work very much anyway, and because that was my first sort of major film, and seeing, I do have I have a fairly normal separation of like, okay, that's Laura, and this is Sheryl over here, and that's Laura up on the screen, but it's still not necessarily the most comfortable film to watch yourself in. I haven't seen it in 25 years. I just saw the deleted scenes. I'm a fan of David's, so I like to see his work. I like to see how the story from the script, because he's so layered, he works so multidimensionally. So you're reading a script, but what you see, actually even before what you see, you read the script, you see your scene for the day, then you go to work, and he adds like 17 more layers. And then you see it up on the screen, and there's like 17 more layers. And I love that. So as a fan, I was curious to see it also, just to see what he had done with this story, what happened. And then as myself, it wasn't the most comfortable moments. But
it was great for us too to finally, get to see what Sheryl could do, because she didn't get, it was like as Laura, she didn't get anything, and then as Maddy, it wasn't like as going off chain as you did in the movie. So we got to see her really get to do her stuff, which was nice.
But also to see everybody else. Like, that's one thing as an actor, when you work on a film, you don't see a lot of the scenes that are shot. If you're not there that day, or if they're shooting something while you're in hair and makeup, you're not seeing what all the other actors are doing. And so when you finally see the finished product, there is also this wonderful feeling of seeing what everybody else had been shooting as well, and being delightfully surprised and moved and taken, and just feeling so blessed to work.
It still surprises me that the reaction was so negative. I mean, it was called things like exploitative, misogynistic, which is the bitch many times, and impenetrable. I remember when I saw it at the time, I know there were other big fans that didn't like it and loved it right away. It was different, but why would it be the same?
Right.
It's like people. No, I'm just talking. But it's like they didn't have the humour or the quirk. Whereas the last 10 days ago, I was like, it's not really funny. Right. Sorry, I just.
No, and I agree with you. It serves the story. It serves the story. You can't, be weird for the sake of being weird.
Well, and it's such a different medium. I mean, that was a film, whereas TV, it's like, it's a different medium. Do you know what I mean? So it is going to be different.
Yeah.
It is going to be a different part of the story.
Well, we talked about one of my favourite scenes in Fire Walk Me, which is the incompetent burial scene, we'll call it. Another favourite scene of mine is the very, very final scene where Laura's, she starts crying, and there's Cooper standing next to her, she starts crying, and then she starts laughing. Now that to me, this is before I saw Missing Pieces with the line that references the angel and the crying. That to me, I don't know what it is. It says something about death that I have never seen put on screen, put in writing. It's something about you're crying, but then you're laughing because it's over. There's a kind of release in that scene. And somehow he manages to wrestle almost an upbeat ending from such a horrific film. I wonder if you could talk about how that scene went and how that came, whether that was initially going to be the final scene or...
Well, we did talk about that. We did have conversations about that. I just remember feeling, you know, that I knew that Laura was going to go through all of this stuff. And I just kept kind of saying to David, I want to find, it's not that you can find a reason why somebody goes through this stuff, but that somewhere I wanted to still feel a sense of hope. You know, to not just have it end with, that was the end, that was her life, that somewhere, somehow, some way, her hope or her spirit could live on.
And also just the relief that she will have by being death.
Yeah,
you know, from
exactly.
the torment and the torture of her life. It's like, come on, man, I get it. And I really hadn't really thought about that until you mentioned it, that it is sort of uplifting, and that's like, I want to see that again, you know what I mean? It's like making me think, wow, that's just a beautiful thing. Like, it's really saying something that I don't think I really have, it hasn't gotten in here, you know what I mean? That's really great.
It gets me every time, every single time. So post-Twin Peaks, post-Marvel, did you feel the Twin Peaks helped your careers, hindered them? Did you feel the time passed at any point, or did you get lots of things? So you die in episode 1, and did you get lots of like, well, you take lots of drugs, and you kind of walk from it. You have that look. Did you get that walk? Did you get that kind of thing?
I didn't get that. You know what I got was a lot of people, like we were talking about this recently, it's like a lot of people wanted to kind of meet us. Like, so they would have these things called general meetings where it wasn't really an audition, but it was like you go in and meet the casting director and they get to know you and then they keep you in mind for other projects coming. But people I think they were into the show, so they wanted to just see what we were about, especially someone like her that came from Seattle. They didn't know. I'd been around for a few years, so they didn't, a lot of them knew me. But people were curious about it. People wanted to see what these freaky, weird people from Twin Peaks were. And this is the other thing. After the first 7, I mean, we did the pilot in the first 7 before it came on the air, so no one knew anything about it. I mean, we did the first 7 episodes, no one knew anything. It was completely different than after we came back for the second season. It was like, people were aware of the show, and there was a big secrecy thing, and we couldn't, we had our names on our scripts, it was like craziness. But before that, it was just us. It was just us doing our thing. It was kind of like a sweet little time before, like, there's so many people that are involved, and just the Hollywood thing comes into it, and all that stuff. And it was just like, with the first 7 and the pilot were just like this pure thing where it was like nobody knew. We were out there in the valley shooting. No one knew we were there. No one cared. No one knew. It was great. It was great. I don't know what your question was. Did I answer it?
This is a question I think Tom asks every year. It's a really good question. If there's any other character on the series that you could have played, who would you like to have played?
Diane.
Yeah. Probably Leland, I guess, because he got to do some shit, you know what I mean? And Ray's my hero anyway, honestly. I love that guy. I want to be Ray, so that's it. And when we worked together on a show up in Vancouver, and we were talking about the audition process that he went through for it, and he was talking about how he read for both Ben Horn and for Leland. And we were rapping about it, and someone we were talking with about it said, you know, that would have been so different to have you with Van Horn. It's such a different kind of vibe. And he was like, yeah, I don't know if I could have done it. And he sat there and yeah, I probably could. Ray can do it. Ray can do anything, man. So, anyway, I guess if we would.
I'm going to go with Diane.
I mean, I look at those actresses and I'm just in awe of what they did. I mean, you know, I love Audrey so much. I love what Sheryl did with it. I love what Machen did. Like, I can't imagine doing anything else because I'm just in awe of what they did.
That's fun, that's fun.
So I'll stick with Diane.
So you both were at the show at Missing Pieces, yeah?
No, I didn't go out. Yeah, no, I didn't.
But have you seen them since?
I have not.
Well, okay, then this question is the show. How do you feel? What was it like watching Missing Pieces?
It was so surreal. Yes. Yeah. I took my little brother, who's 10 years younger than I am and who's a filmmaker, and I'm so glad that I took him because I don't think that I realized that there just was no way to kind of think ahead of time of how that would feel. Because first off, like I said, I don't watch my work that much anyway, and so to watch my work and to watch it in a theater and to not know. I had no idea. I was trying to remember, what did we shoot, to not know. Then all these other scenes start coming up of, you know, the Bobby scene and, you know, Peggy Lipton scenes, and I'm like, oh, phew, okay, good, this is all their scenes. You know, and that was wonderful, and I would kind of get lost, and then there would be a Laura scene, and it was this very strange feeling of having no sense of time. You know, that time, kind of being in between time. Because some of the scenes I didn't remember filming. Enough time has gone by that I didn't even remember filming them. And then other ones I remembered as if it was yesterday. And didn't remember that they hadn't actually been in the film in the first place. You know, so, and usually when you see your work, if you have to see your work as an actor, you're seeing it within a year of doing it. Not 25 years later. You know, that was, wow. But I was so impressed with the way that David put it together, because when Fire Walk With Me came out, there was this, it was obviously in discussion, there's this amount of film, and the film is only this long. So where is this other part of the story? Will it ever be able to get told? So there was a natural curiosity creatively of what is that part of the story and what would that do to the story if it was allowed to be told. But it was really great to see, you know, all of those, like Peggy scenes and Bobby's scenes.
I want to see the Peggy Everett scenes, the Peggy Lipton Everett, the Gill scenes that I heard are really sweet and lovely.
And Grace and Ray, just to see all them again. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're running out of time, so just one final question for me, then I'll throw it open to the audience. How did you find out about season 3, and is there anything you can tell us? I think I know the answer to the second one, but I'm asking anyway.
So fun. I was at home on a Monday, and I got a text from my other half. I'm calling her my fiance. Her cousin was the first person to text me at like 8 in the morning. He was like, oh my God, you see this? And I saw it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And I immediately texted Sheryl. I immediately texted Kimmy. And I immediately texted Machen. And all three of them were like, huh? I was like, okay, well at least they don't know, because I know they would know. And then a couple hours later, I got a text from Sheryl and Finn. And she was like, I talked to David. We're going back to Twin Peaks. We're going to have some fun. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know what that meant. And then Sheryl told me when I got here that David said that we're both. So,
I was waiting for the car to take me to the airport. First off, I'll go backwards a little bit, and I'll say this really fast. He texted me, and because he was on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, so he got the news first about the show. And I thought it was a total joke, or like some weird publicity, like April Fool's thing. And I was like, no way, no way, no, I know that can't be true. And I found out, yes, in fact, it was true. And then, you know, had sent David an email, is this true, is this true, yes, it's true. And then we were all kind of texting and calling, have you heard from them, have you heard from them? You gotta call them, you gotta call them. We're all really close. And everybody's just like, you know. So then David had called me and I missed his call and called him back and was waiting for him to call me back. And so the car to bring me to the airport, to bring me till here, was pulling into my driveway and the phone rings and it's David and I'm like, I just have a couple minutes because the car is here to take me to the Twin Peaks Festival. And he said, well, you tell them you are, and Dana is. And